but not as we know it.
How dare you? Are you just talking to yourself?
Two, 1, 5.
It is 5 minutes to 12 p.m. on Friday, the 22nd of March, 2024. And you are listening to the BashCast. Coming up in this morning's BashCast, Tom answers a question from a Pinnacle Odds Compiler over roadworks and explains the nuances of the non-deterministic polynomial time-hard problem that is optimizing the maintenance schedule of the homogeneous M25 road network. Jesse, May and Ronan McDonough join us for a sneaky peek chat about SmartBash 2024 in association with Matchbook this summer, and this time everybody is invited to the party. I do a profit-loss review of my gambling in shops and on exchanges in February and March. What am I betting on? How much volume am I getting down? And what is my ROI looking like in different categories? A Cheltenham Festival roundup, a summary of the value available, Willie Mullins killing me, and a warning about jumping to conclusions with sample sizes at these festivals. And is over 3.5 the new over 2.5? What is going on with premiership goals this season? All of that coming up and more on the BashCast this morning. I feel like I've flopped a full house now in the 2024 nuanced buzzwords game. I've just come back from cold water swimming, which I do now every Friday morning, not because I love it, but because I hate it. Same temperatures when the Titanic went down. You could see how they were in trouble. You do it not because you enjoy it, but because you don't enjoy it, and therefore when you get out, it actually feels like you've achieved something with the first thing that you've done in the day, other than get the kids to school. But if I was to fast forward from when I was 24 to now and hear about the cold water swimming for physical and mental health benefits, the fact that I haven't drunk alcohol in nearly 100 days now, the fasting that I've been doing, the CrossFit functional training, I don't know what I would think of myself, but this is what 2024 is all about, isn't it? I even spoke about gaslighting in the last couple of episodes. What has happened to me? So I'm not going to go on about that. I know I rabbit on for 10 or 15 minutes in a lot of podcasts, but I've got to appreciate that people do not come to a gambling and advantage play podcast to get life advice. If that's what you want, go and seek out Huberman, go and seek out James Smith, go and seek out Chris Williamson. There's 1,000,001 expert podcasts about enhancing your life and mental and physical well-being. You certainly don't need to hear about it when all you want to hear about is gambling edges. Why would you go to the BashCast or any gambling podcast just to hear about mental and physical well-being, eating well, and fitness?
Hello and welcome to a podcast from BetfairTradingCommunity.com. We're going to call this podcast Betfair Trading Strategies, and today I'm actually going to talk about a way you can improve your Betfair trading strategies where you don't even need to be on a PC, because we are actually going to be talking today about fitness. I'm going to be talking about fitness, why you should get fit if you're not, why it will actually help you in your trading to get your fitness level up. Now, you don't necessarily need to go and be, Arnold Schwarzenegger back in the day or anything like that. But there's real benefits to this. So we're going to get to those and we're going to go through those today. I'm really interested in fitness. I'm really interested in staying healthy when you're trading.
Oh, sorry. What was that? I believe my kettle has just called me black. A little bit racist, that kettle, to be fair. I am triggered by that accusation, but it's not like me to swerve out of the gambling content in this podcast into random things that are going on in my life. And yeah, sorry, just taking the piss a little bit. If you want to learn more about trading and backing and laying and backing, laying and training, then head over to the BTC podcast. But whilst we're all at this party, swerving out of our designated lanes, then I am, of course, going to open this podcast, this intro, with a topic that is very, very important and has been on the news recently. And that is, of course, the weekend traffic jam that occurred on the M25 when the whole network was shut down for a 3-day period so that they could dismantle some gantries and do some emergency all-lane maintenance and rehabilitation. At Massive Arbor, who I believe is somebody who is a massive arbor and not quite a senior trader over at Pinnacle, did ask if there was a podcast segment on this. And all I could think of is, why would I slot in a podcast segment on the maintenance of the M25 into a gambling podcast? And the answer to that is that I spent 15 years doing it. I don't know if you know this or not. And if you don't, get ready to be entertained. In a previous life, the life I left before becoming a full-time Advantage player, professional gambler, I was the senior condition manager in infrastructure and maintenance on the M25 road network. That's right. I know how impressed you are. I spent my undergraduate doing civil engineering. I spent a postgraduate studying maintenance, rehabilitation, but really a lot of optimal decision making. This is a 7-year postgraduate research course into things like multi-criteria decision analysis, multi-attribute decision making, genetic algorithms in the search for the optimal rehabilitation program. A lot of prediction, a lot of optimal decision making, skill sets, if you like, that were directly transferable from the field of infrastructure management into professional betting, mathematical modeling, sort of looking at distribution models from a different perspective, not from a sports betting perspective, but from an engineering perspective. Because here is the problem. Here is the problem that we had to solve, and this is why it is so difficult to manage and maintain something like the M25. Imagine the M25, something like 7,000 lane kilometers of network, and you don't just have the M25, you've got the stubs and tails, by which I mean every slip road, every roundabout that comes off it, parts of the M1 and the other motorways that attach themselves to the M25 actually comprise the M25 road network. And you've got lane 1, lane 2, lane 3, lane 4, up to lane 8 over at the Dartford Tunnel. And you've got hard shoulders, which, if you think of a 3D representation, are made of a completely different composition of structure than lane 1. Of course they are, because you don't have the load of lorries. The heavier the load of the traffic that goes over the pavement, the thicker the pavement has to be. It might be 30 millimeters thick in some areas of the hard shoulder that won't have any traffic. It might be 500 millimeters thick in light areas of lane 1. It might be concrete that's got completely different structural characteristics in other areas. And each of these areas of the M25 need to have predictions on deterioration as the traffic goes over it on a 25-year basis, because so many lorries, axle loads go over the pavement, go over the concrete surface, go over the high friction surfacing, go over the bitumen, go over the asphalt, go over lots of different road construction types, all of which have their own load bearing characteristics and wear at different rates. How on earth do you manage that? Well, what you do is you chunk everything up into 10-meter sections. So you've got 7,000 lane kilometers. Well, we're now looking at 700,000 10-meter homogeneous sections across the network. 10 meters of lane 1, 10 meters of lane 2, 10 meters of lane 3, 10 meters of lane 4, 10 to 20 of lane 1, etc., etc. And for each and every section along the M25, it is necessary to then send down a machine that, if you like, it's like a lorry with a bar at the front, and the bar at the front has a number of lasers that fire down, and when it fires down, it bounces off the road surface and comes back up, and it will work out things like the longitudinal profile variance of the road surface. It will work out rutting, which is where the wheel path goes, and a little dent comes where the wheel path goes. The road ruts naturally where the wheels of the car go over. It will work out the texture, and it will know exactly the condition of the road as it goes over. And this happens very frequently around the entire road network, so much so that you get a lot of lawyers that chance their arm and they say, my client was driving around the M25 where he hit a 50 centimetre pothole on the 3rd of April 2017 on lane 2. Please, can you send him £50,000 for the distress that was caused? That was quite a common letter that we would get. And what the lawyer doesn't know is that we sent a machine the day before over that not only took a photograph of it, we didn't see a pothole, but we had sort of centimetre by centimetre profiles of the surface. We knew exactly where the potholes were, and we would fill them very quickly once they hit a particular level of severity. There's thresholds. If you simply can't have potholes on motorways with traffic going at 70 miles an hour. There's a lot of maintenance that goes around. And why are there so many potholes in the UK? Well, because it's the UK. If you ever go to Spain or more warm climates, I go to Arizona quite a lot. Do you ever look at the roads and think, why are the UK roads never like this? Why do we have so many potholes in the UK? We're so useless at maintaining our roads. Well, this isn't correct. Think of a porous road surface. Now think of the UK and think of the rain that comes in to the roads. That rain sits there and in colder months freezes because it is cold underneath the road surface, and it will freeze as ice. And as the water freezes as ice, it contracts, it pushes all of those little bits of road material apart, and that will stay until it melts, and as it melts, it will contract. And the road surface therefore is contracting and expanding and contracting and expanding, and over time it loses its structural integrity and the pothole forms. And this happens way more often in cold climates and wet climates, such as Iceland, Norway, the UK. It just happens more often because of the climate that we're in compared to Spain. And that's why there's a lot more maintenance in our countries than there is in those other countries, because of the structural problems that we have managing and maintaining bitumen road surfaces in the UK. So now we've got our 10-metre homogeneous sections around the M25. What we now need to do is predict how each one of those is going to deteriorate over time. How much time, I hear you ask? Well, it depends. 1 year, 2 year, 5 year. They all have different deterioration curves. 20 years, 30 years. The M25 road network is actually on a private finance initiative. It was sold to a company called Connect Plus Services, who bought the maintenance rights for in the region of a few billion back in the early 2010s. I was one of the leads in predicting the amount of money that would be needed in that bid and the figure that was tabled to the Highways Agency at the time. And we predicted every single 10-metre homogeneous section around the network. We worked out what it was made out of, the condition it was in at this moment in time, the deterioration curves, and what would happen if you intervened under different scenarios. But now you've got 700,000 homogeneous sections around the network. You've got different construction types, you've got different condition types, and you're saying, well, we could go in year 1, but we could also go in year 5. What's the difference to the life cycle value of that? It's a complicated equation. There's no perfect answer. There's only a very, very good answer. It's an NP-hard problem, a non-polynomial time-hard problem with a serious number of different alternative solutions in mathematical hyperspace, and you've got to come up with a near optimal solution. And so when the guys go in on the weekend and they close the network for the first time across all lanes, they're going to incur a significant penalty as part of that private finance initiative contract, which says that for however many hours the road is closed for, a penalty will be applied and some of the money of the bid will be recouped. And it's up to the private finance initiative to maximize the profits for their shareholders by minimizing the amount of time that the road network is closed for. They do not want to close the network. And that's why when the gantry was taken down and there was no other option but to close all lanes to take that gantry down and dismantle the bridge and do whatever emergency maintenance they wanted to do, they not only did it all in that extremely small and narrow window, but they opened the motorway up 8 hours earlier than planned. The reason being, they are at the mercy of the shareholders telling them for every hour that this goes on more than it has to, it's going to cost us hundreds of thousands or millions of pounds. For any more information on the M25 maintenance and management, do get in touch with me at tom@bookiebashing.net. Okay, now on the BashCast, it's time to give you guys a little sneaky peek preview about something that's going to happen this summer. So last summer, you may or may not be aware that we tested out an event for the first time. That was the SmartBash 2023. And it was an event that was invite only and very small because we were really testing the waters to see if it worked. Quite a lot of people got in touch to say, can I come? How do I get invited? And really, we were capping it at 60, 70 people to see if we could do it, to see if we could run the event. And the feedback was it kind of worked. Like the concept was good. People enjoyed the networking part of it. The execution, we maybe didn't get completely right. It was maybe the wrong venue. The acoustics were wrong. And so we had a lot of learning from that. And based off the back of that, we're now going to move forward into 2024 and do the Smart Bash again, having learned the lessons that we learned last year and expanding in it, the event and opening it up to anyone that wants to come. Of course, we have to cap it at a certain level. So it's going to be a kind of first come, first serve. And off the back of that information, the Smart Bash 2023 is going to become the Smart Bash in association with Matchbook 2024, because the guys at Matchbook have joined Bookie Bashing and the Smart Betting Club to get involved with the running of this event. And this is super helpful because it means that it's not down to someone as inexperienced as me to throw an event when I don't really know what I'm doing. The guys over there have done this before and they do know what they're doing. So Ronan and Jesse join me now on the BashCast from Matchbook. Hello, guys.
Hi, Tom.
And can you guys maybe give us a little bit of why you think you've wanted to team up with Smart Betting Club and Bookie Bashing, and maybe what you're hoping to get out of the event this summer, and what you think anyone listening could get out of it if they decided that they wanted to join us there?
Yeah, so I suppose I'll start, Tom, because I was lucky enough to be invited last year, and I think you were a bit harsh on yourself because from my point of view, it was a brilliant event, especially I suppose the networking thing was the key part of it for me. Like I couldn't believe the quality of the people you got into that room. There were some people who I was familiar with through Twitter, some customers of ours, and by the end of the night, I left with a brand new market maker for golf, maybe 5 or 6 new customers, and also a load of new knowledge and wisdom from some of the smartest brains in betting. So from my point of view, it was probably the best event I was at last year or any of the previous few years. So, you know, if we can replicate that again this year and maybe add a few more features to the day, you know, it's going to be the best event in betting on this side of the pond.
I mean, I concur with. I can't believe I missed it last year. First of all, Tom, I mean, Matchbook, we're really pleased that you guys invited us to be part of this. This is the kind of thing, and you know, Bookie Bash and Smart Betting Club. We think we're really aligned with you guys in terms of, you know, you're who we want to be associated with in terms of, you know, Matchbook Exchange is all about. People having winning betting strategies on an exchange. That's certainly what you guys are about. But really, you know, if you have the right people in the room, and that's what I know Ronan experienced last year, and we've experienced at any of these that we've gone to in the past or been lucky to be a part of, nothing else really matters. And that's certainly what you guys bring to the table, along with hopefully some of the people we know. And when we put that together, I do think it's going to be a great day. You know, we had like a traders conference a couple of years ago. And it's just about the knowledge that can get passed there, because often in this business, I think you find yourself, I don't want to say alone or in an echo chamber, but you don't really get to talk to all the really smart people there, and where are they going to be? So the fact that we can get them together here for a day in London is going to be really exciting. And once we start between us, really beefing up that guest list, I know we've got plenty of people, obviously, who came last year, and also already when we're starting to tell people about this, we're excited. So look, I think it's going to be great. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on there, Jesse. I think the thing about networking, I don't know if everybody has experience in networking, but I come from both an academic and a chartered civil engineering background, a professional background. In those industries, conferences, journal papers, things like that, where you get together, you talk around ideas with other people, you tell them what you know, they tell you what they know, you criticize each other in a positive way. And I'll tell you this, the product of a group is always greater than the sum of the individual parts. And right back when I started gambling and I was doing it on my own, I was doing okay, but it wasn't until I started sharing on forums different strategies and equity graphs where I met some people and I formed syndicated groups, or I joined some existing syndicated groups, and that turbocharged my ability to understand edges, know about edges, get money down, things like that. And so in the world of professional gambling or advantage play or winning gambling, not the recreational gambling, networking, you can do this on your own if you want to, but if you really want to take it to the next level, networking is the way to do it. So I agree fundamentally with you there.
And there are a lot of people out there in this industry who are willing to share information. If you put them in the right in the right setting. All of the most informative and biggest learnings in my career have been maybe days spent talking with people, followed by a night in the bar, just being put together, sharing ideas, and hearing how people find an edge in this industry.
That's it. You're not going to buy a book on exactly how to find an edge in next week's golf event or horse racing event. But if you stand at the bar with somebody that's got an edge and he's had enough to drink and likes you enough, you might just find something out there,
Or hopefully have a bunch of sessions. And I think, Tom, that's probably what we're gonna add that you guys didn't have last year. Just a little more structure to the day. With, I think, topics that they have a lot of these industry conventions out there, but those are geared towards operators, not people who are serious punters. And there's so many topics that basically don't get addressed, but everyone that we know is interested in. How to find an edge, how to create a model. Stories. People have to deal with compliance issues, what the industry is like. There's so many big topics that I think get discussed in the margins, and it's going to be great to get in a forum where we have people with credibility, people from all around the industry, and winning punters talking about them.
Yeah, I mean, this is the structure of the day. The narrative around the SmartBash event really is, it's not the bookmakers' narrative. It's not the conversation from there. It is not recreational punters. It's advantage players, winning punters. It's focused on modeling, getting money down, variance, syndicates, market making, even just pushing a positive narrative around gambling with maybe a media presence there as well, because there is so much going on, especially now around, it's very easy picking to focus on the negatives, but we should have a voice, and this is why we have the SmartBash. So to give some structure around the day, take with a pinch of salt everything I'm about to say, because everything is penciled in roughly, but we've yet to fully confirm everything. But we are tentatively suggesting the 19th of July, 2024, which I believe is a Friday, I think, guys. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
We're looking at 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock in London, tentatively. Perhaps you might be thinking about a Premier League stadium like Chelsea, if we can get it confirmed, somewhere around there. That's what we're thinking about. And during the day, the structure. So last year we had a bar in a casino, and we had a small panel, and we had some discussion, which my issues with it were essentially that nobody could hear unless you were a foot away from the front row of the crowd. It's going to be a lot more professional this year. And let's say we run it from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. It could be slightly different hours. What do you think the structure of the day is going to be this year, guys?
Well, we're going to do it right. I mean, I think everything that you just said. We're going to have a good venue. We're going to have food. We're going to have an itinerary. I mean, we had a lot of fun ourselves, just coming up with ideas, probably a list as long as my arm about what the different topics would be. But I think one of the great things is we'll definitely look to take input from people about sessions they'd like to see discussed, and maybe take that into the account. But essentially, I think program for the day, there's probably going to be 7 or 8 sessions during the day of different topics, question and answer, that kind of thing. Some keynote speakers. There'll be lunch, and then there's going to be networking through the day and at the end. Right? What could be better?
Yeah, we're going to have some food. We're going to have some drinks. We're going to have some important people in the room. One of the things we've discussed with you guys and with Pete over the Smart Betting Club is that we want to make sure that there is a core group of very influential people in our industry that we want to see there. We're not talking about people that perhaps want to push a narrative of negativity around gambling or even the bookmakers side of the fence. We're really talking about market makers. We're talking about professional punters. We're talking about people that have got interesting stories in the history of making a buck or two out of gambling and the edges that they found. And if you want to come down, that's what you're going to hear.
Yeah, I mean, like Ronan is a seasoned and gnarled professional. He gets to talk to everybody and has been everywhere. But I must have had and we had our corporate, I think our corporate summer party, our Matchbook summer party was on the same day, so we couldn't go. But Ronan thought that the SmartBash was too important. And we just kept getting messages after messages from him. You'll never guess who I'm talking to. This is incredible. I can't believe all the people in this room. And coming from Ronan, that was pretty strong. And I look, I think it's going to be more of the same and better this year.
Yeah, and I think, Tom, you hit the nail on the head. Like, the positive side of betting just doesn't get talked about, and we all get dragged into talking about the negative side, even though we don't want to be doing that. So, like, to paint there's a massive positivity to gambling, from maths knowledge to character building to just behavior, and the people who are successful at gambling are just some of the most interesting people in the world. And I think in recent times they've had to kind of hide away a little bit, which is just not right. Like, you know what I mean? They're top of the tree in a very, very tough industry. And, to have access to that and to hear from them is, everybody should be interested in that. You know what I mean? I think there's a lot of people in other industries that get put on pedestals, and they're just not as interested or as smart or knowledgeable as some of these gambling people. So, there's something there for everybody, really.
Yeah, for sure. And if you want to hear real information out of a lot of people, you do have a slight concept in our industry that you have to be slightly protective of any information that you have that may be profitable at the risk of eroding the edge that you have. And often you're not going to log on to YouTube, Twitter, social media and find out about these things. You come to an event like this, though, it's exactly the kind of place that you may be able to. So listen, if you're interested in this event, we are coming to the end of our planning phase with Smart Betting Club and with Matchbook, and we are going to really nail down the venue and the date sometime in the next few days. So, I mean, this BashCash might go out on the weekend. It might even have been done by then. And the one thing we'll have a website live with all of the information for you to go and read about. We'll have a link to that website in the footnotes of this podcast. And if you want to go to @BookieBashNet on Twitter, our social media manager will have tweeted a link to the website as well. It's something like smart.bash.net. But if it isn't that, and that's something completely different, just go and check the notes. If you're interested in buying tickets to the event, they'll be available soon, but you can ping me an email now at tom@bookiebashing.net and express your interest, and there will be a sort of queue system going on. We expect to sell out, so it may be a first come, first serve event. If you're interested in speaking because you have some sort of kudos and reputation in the industry, get in touch with us. I mean, we've already started getting in touch with people ourselves, but you may be bringing something to the table that we haven't thought of. And if you're interested in hearing somebody speak up on the stage, doing perhaps a keynote speech or some sort of gambling TED talk or a panel discussion, get in touch with us with those names as well. We'd love to hear them. So pencil in Friday the 19th of July, 2024. And if you hang around until just about 5 o'clock in the evening, I heard that Jesse's getting a round in at the bar. Is that right?
That at least one. That'll be the start anyway. And all I'll probably ask in return is some information. No, that's really like, I can't wait. This is the kind of stuff that I get very geeky about. I think most of us who really enjoy the industry do. Just the chance to meet people, exchange ideas, and hear stories. And hear stories and angles.
I completely agree with you there, Jesse. Matchbook, Ronan and Jesse, I really appreciate you joining me on the BashCast today, and I will see you guys in July at the SmartBash event.
Look forward to it.
Nice one. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Gambling and chat. 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 Thought I might do a profit loss breakdown for everything that I've been doing, because I haven't done that for a while. It used to be staple, something that we did a lot, especially in like podcasts 0 to 50, which aren't available anymore because one, they were a bit rubbish. They were like a personal diary. Not very many people listen to them, like 50 people or something. They've got 4 figures now tuning in. But also, as we get bigger, we've got to be more protective of the edges, especially when there are people directly copying the edges that we have without a thought on sustainability. Because if they take certain edges, especially one that I've been betting on, it doesn't hold very much liquidity. The price, I kind of take the price and the price doesn't reappear. So what's the point of announcing exactly what it is? I ruin it for myself and maybe a handful of other people that would happen to be betting on it. But this is my soft online bookmaker profit loss since the beginning of February is 0.0 because I ain't got none. So that's an easy one, right? So I've only really been looking at shops, and I have been looking at exchanges, and I've roughly 1,000 bets in February and the first 3 weeks of March. So 59 days. How many days were there in February this year? 29 plus 20. Yeah, 49 days. So 342 and oh wow, that's an amazingly round number. I've placed exactly 900 bets. I've had to sort of manually in my head add up the exchange ones and the shops. So a 2-to-1 ratio of exchanges to shops, 558 in the exchanges, 342 in the shops. Would you be interested in, I mean, I'm not going to dive straight into profit loss, how vulgar, and who cares. Also, the amount that I've made kind of isn't that important. I mean, the only thing that's really affected for is PTL in the shops, permission to lay, because you have a logistical problem getting down a certain amount of money. I couldn't turn around to you and tell you I've made 150 million in the shops because I can't bet high enough to make 150 million in the shops, right? Maybe if this was Las Vegas, I could be making millions. Very difficult to in the UK. So in the UK, you know, if I was betting on coupons, we're sort of limited at 200 to 300 pounds per coupon. Lucky 15s, you want to stay under the radar, you might be thinking 60 or 90 quid. Things like that, right? So betting any higher than that, you risk popping your head over the parapet. I mean, there are some shops that don't care. There are some shops that will take 100,000 liability on the players and the golf and things like that. But yeah, I'm mostly constrained by the logistics of keeping my head, or at least my runners' heads, under the parapet, right? Whereas on the exchanges, not so much. But generally, my overall betting over the years has been, you know, a sort of form of Kelly staking, where I'm kind of betting most normal fly-by-night, run-of-the-mill bets to win £1,500 liability. If I don't like it that much but want to bet on it, I'll come down to 500 on the win. Unit win staking up to 500 is my absolute pretty much minimum, and then going up to about 3,000 if I really, really like it. All right? So that's my form of Kelly. And on those 900 bets, I haven't added them together, but I've got quite similar ROIs. I've got an 11% ROI in the exchange. That's after commission. And 10.69% at the shops. Those shops are mostly Betfred, William Hill, smattering of Paddy Power, Ladbrokes included. Interesting email from someone who likes to bet on the horses at Ladbrokes because they offer fewer extra places, thinks that the value is more reliable and therefore the EV is less, but he's finding his ROI is higher. So I found that an interesting concept. These are his beliefs. Haven't tested it myself, but no reason to dismiss them because I haven't looked into them. So I've broken these bets down by category. What shall I do first? Shall I do shops first? So if interested, what am I betting on? So 25%, 24.85% of my bets in shops are horses. 20% of my bets are goal scorer related. That could be Double Delight, but it could be a number of other things. 20% were golf. 9% are coupons. And then maybe another 24% other stuff, such as NFL, virtual doubles. One of the virtual doubles won, incidentally, recently as well. So we are 380% ROI on the virtual doubles, and that's because I've placed 3 recently. So one of the 3 won. Oh no, I've placed 5. I've just labelled them virtual double and VD. So that's poor form, isn't it? But I'm still smashing the 300% ROI on the virtual doubles in the last couple of months. So that's the bookmakers. And what about the exchanges? So the exchanges, about 30% of my bets are golf, 22% player stats, and I'll come to that. I'm not, so 10% game center, 5% some enhanced specials. There's a market I'm not going to talk about. I'll talk about the results, but I'm not going to talk about the market for the reason that I think it has to be protected. But it's available on Bookie Bashing. Actually, it's kind of mad how I found it. There's a lot on Bookie Bashing that I've developed, but I don't have the focus to bet everything. There's way too much content. And somebody had got in touch and they'd bet on 180 or so of these over 3 weeks and had a minus 50% ROI, and so was asking me to check it, and I checked it. And actually it was like, in terms of independent football games, it was only like 60 or 70 independent football games. So unfortunately, it doesn't matter if you're minus 60 or plus 60% ROI, when it's only 60 football games, it's a variance issue. We really need times 10 that sample size before we can make any decisions, maybe even times 20. And I don't think the person wanted to hear that. They were relatively new, but it just is the fact that that's the case. I know it can take a long time to build up sample sizes, but that's why you do this for years and not for days. One of the most common things I have in clinic calls is people that maybe be with Bookie Bashing for a month or 6 weeks and are down and are very surprised that they're down. And it's like, you could easily be down after months and months doing the right thing. It just is the way that variance works. Get to 1,000 of anything and then talk to me, generally, roughly. So, yeah, that market, I thought I'll investigate that. And I actually looked back using the archive tools at that market over the last 2 or 3 years. I'm relatively impressed by the performance. So started having a look at the markets. Well, there's 120% odd EV liquidity sitting around, not a lot of it, and I would take it and it wouldn't come back. So I've been doing that, and that's been 16% ROI on the exchanges. So yeah, how have I been performing? Well, golf's been minus 30% ROI. That includes a winner as well, right? So golf is what it is. It could be down at the end of this year, and that's fine. Had like 4 or 5 years consecutive that have been in profit. So player stats plus 30%. Horses at the shops plus 30%. Interesting. Yeah, I had a couple of big wins recently. That was down for quite some time, and then 2 big old wins, 2 big 4-figure wins sort of dragged it from down to plus 30% ROI. And that's the madness of these lucky 15s, the variants of them. You're waiting for that decent big win, right? Game Center plus 46% ROI. Some of the enhanced specials plus 75% ROI. Golf in the shops plus 20% ROI. That was, I think, that was down to a lot of places. A couple of weeks ago, there was a weekend, the Puerto Rico Open and the PGA tournament where everyone placed at high odds, but nobody won. But people could have won. I mean, Lowry was there, Cantero was there, 250 to 1, 80 to 1. Thigala was placing. So it was like just cleaned up on that particular tournament. Coupons minus 38% ROI. Football coupons haven't been doing great this season, down on the entire season. Again, that's fine. DDHH plus 7.43%. Had Hoyland 150 quid at 9 to 2. Had Van der Merwe in the rugby 100 quid. Oh, on the rugby, actually, threw a dart right at the beginning of the Six Nations. Threw about 5 darts. I was looking at nationality top try scorer, and there's nothing particularly clever about this, but I was just looking for where Betfred or William Hill on Odds Checker were standout alone top price, and Gail Fickou was top French try scorer at 33 to 1 at Betfred, and I think was 25's best elsewhere. So threw a dart at Gail Fickou, and another 3 or 4 that didn't win, to be transparent, but they were all 10 to 1 and 20 to 1. And Fickou got 2 tries, and everyone else for France had 1 try until the last game against England on the last round. So we're just hoping that one of those 8 players on 1 try doesn't catch Fickou up, but that is going to happen unless Fickou scores a try, isn't it? Right? And it did happen. Like 2 players scored for France, so all of a sudden I've got like 33 quid on this. I've got 30 quid on this each way, 1 to 2 odds, 2 places at 33 to 1. And all of a sudden, 1 player catches him on 2 tries. So I've got a dead heat, 1 divided by 2. And then a second player catches him as well in the game. So now I'm a dead heat, 1 divided by 3. And then with the last try for France in the entire tournament, Gail Fickou goes over and he gets to 3 tries. And now he's dead heat nothing. He just is an outright winner. I mean, there's nothing clever in that other than I was looking for the top price. So, shops are doing very reasonable. And on the exchanges, the player stats is a lot of... So the golf is just the golf. That's just outright winners. The player stats is quite a lot of fun here. One of the things I've been focusing on is laying very short price shots on target bets. So, for example, let's take everyone's favourite Erling Haaland on the weekend. Now, Erling Haaland to get over 0.5 shots on target against Newcastle, he was like 1.11 to lay, 1.1 to back, 1.11 to lay on the exchanges, right? Now, I made him 1.17. Now, I have as much fave long bias as recreational punters do, as you probably do. Look, I don't want to put £10,000 down at 1 to 5, but I will put £10 down at 200 to 1. I just will. So I don't like betting at 1 to 10 that much. I kind of never do it, to tell you the truth, but I will lay at 1 to 10 if it's value. And because we made the fair odds 1.17, 1.11 laying that was a reasonable lay. I mean, you're getting 10 to 1 on Haaland to not get a shot on target. And my other favourite part of this bet is he didn't get a shot on target in the first half. He had like 5 shots in the game. None of them were on target. Come the second half, every time the referee or the linesman holds up the board for substitutions, this piques your interest, especially when the dominant team is ahead and has won the match because they're going to take off strikers like Haaland. Now, City were only 2-0 up against Newcastle. But, Haaland was subbed in the 81st minute. And as soon as that happens, when you're laying the shots on target and he doesn't have it, that's chicken dinner, isn't it? You know? So, those have been going very well for me, as well as backing any, generally odds against, and also some assists, some fouls. Oh, Alexis McAllister was a big 130% EV bet to get 3+ fouls for Liverpool. against Manchester United on the weekend, and he got like 2 in the first 15 minutes and then didn't get another one. An interesting bet that we had on the weekend that I was talking to somebody over on support, breaking it down, was Chelsea to win, Chelsea to have the most shots on target, Chelsea to have the most corners, and Leicester to have the most cards. Now, that bet without the shots on target is quite a common one. You see it in enhanced trebles, you see it in the back end of the Your Odds at William Hill and sometimes at Paddy Power. But normally without shots on target, so it'd be the team to win, team to have the most corners, and opposition to have the most cards. Now, this can be done on the bet builder, select XG, and then the team and most, change over to most, and corners, and the team and most, and then and cards, and the opposition and most. And it's got some coefficients in it that will, the fact that if one team gets corners, the other team is less likely to get corners, things like that. And it'll work it out. And sometimes it's neutral EV, and sometimes it's really big EV. We discussed about this on the last BashCast, and there's been some huge 120, 130% EV bets like this on the exchanges recently. BetDAX, Markets, and Matchbook. BetDAX and Matchbook have the enhanced specials area. Markets, you've got to go to the sport and then down into specials. But if it's something like Foden to get over 0.5 shots on target, that will just be in the normal market within the game, right? So always just worth checking maybe the bet tracker to see what boosts are on, which will then direct you maybe to the standard normal markets over within player stats at the exchange. So this bet wasn't just the win, the most corners, and the least cards, but it was the most shots on target as well. And that's an interesting one because every goal is a shot on target. So you can't just multiply everything together there. Own goals aren't shots on target, but let's not be pedantic. Every normal goal is a shot on target, scored by an outfield player in their own team. By the way, did you know that if you take a direct free kick, if you take a direct free kick and you end up putting the ball in your own net, do you know what the referee gives? Answers on a postcard to Tom at bookiebashing.net if you know the answer to that question. So you're taking a direct free kick and somehow, God knows how this would happen, you put the ball into your own net. What does the referee award there? You tell me. Whoever gives me the correct answer will win something. And if more than one person emails in, I'll take the first person to answer me and I will send them something. Anyway, so for this, I don't have a calculation that combines most goals and most shots on target, but that doesn't mean we can't work it out, because what we do is we know an upper bound and we know a lower bound, right? So the bet Chelsea to win most corners and most cards was 3.77. The shots on target was like 1.3, okay? So the lowest it can be, the lowest probability is 3.77, right? The highest it can be is this direct multiplication, which is 5.05, but it's probably somewhere between 3.77 and 5.05, right? Meaning I'd lay 3.05 and anything under, and I'd back I'd lay 3.77 and anything under, and I'd back 5.05 and anything over. And in between 3.05 and 5.77, I simply don't know. 3.775, but I don't know, right? So and then you look at the exchanges, and there's 5.8, 5.9 going at the exchanges. So it's an easy back. So we backed it. I think the member that sent in the support ticket backed it. And then, very beautifully, Chelsea were 2-0 up, had all the shots on target, had all the corners, and the Leicester had all the cards. So it was in. And somehow Chelsea let in 2 goals, and they left it until like the 96th minute. But Sterling, I think, got the winner. Don't quote me on Sterling. I was kind of watching that out of half an eye, and that bet came in. I just found it very interesting having to break that one down. And there's plenty of other bets that have been coming in, such as, if it's something that we don't have an in-house model for, like ice hockey or tennis, 2 players to win 2-0. At least the bet builder will take the fair odds. So if it's not liquid on the exchange, we'll still work out the fair odds of that as long as something's happened on there and it's not completely empty. And that will enable us to benchmark something. And very often these markets are just bang on and there's no value. But very often you're spending 110, 120, 130% EV. So, yeah, in total, the exchanges are, let's just pop over to here, 3,300, I think. £3,444 in profit since the beginning of February. 2,413 at the exchanges. So 5.8k profit in the last 50 odd days, and that's a profit loss summary from me. Let's do a little Cheltenham Festival roundup since we did a little preview beforehand. So we've just got to be a bit cautious when doing a roundup such as this. We are talking about 25 races here, or at least there was about 25 races with value in them. I mean, you had some races with a certain composition of runners and prices that you're just never ever going to find any edges or angle from an each way perspective or any other way anyway. So you just got to be careful with talking about how profitable any system is over a sample size of 25, especially when we got off to the start that we got off with, when all the favourites were winning on the first day. I mean, I think it was something like favourite, second favourite, or something like that won at Cheltenham last week. Like Slade Steel, second favourite, Gaelic Warrior favourite, Chianto Classic, second favourite, State Man favourite, Lossiemouth favourite, Lark in the Morning, second favourite, and Corbett's Cross, second favourite. So anyone sort of saying that they've got a system and they're betting all of the favourites to win there, I mean, you just pick the favourite, the second favourite. How difficult a system is that? And of course, when the favourites win, generally the bookmakers lose and the advantage players, the professional punters, lose as well. So whatever the returns are from any tipster or service, just be mindful that good services could be down after 25 races. I know in the past the very excellent Betting Emporium have had losing Cheltenhams. That doesn't make them negative long term. And bad punters, bad tipsters can be in profit. I have seen someone announcing insane profits, maybe using some sort of alternative horse racing tracker at Cheltenham. Insane is an adjective that sort of describes something that is beyond reality. And look, these horse racing trackers are simple but steady profit services. I mean, the beyond reality, if you break the numbers down, is generally about a 5% return on investment, 4%, 5%, something like that. It's within reality. It's not that insane. I'd say it was sane, but it depends on, how much you understand the mathematics and the expectations of the services that you're using. So having said all of that, what did I bet on? What did the bookie bashing tracker make, and what did my lucky 15s make? So there's three different questions there. First of all, I was down at Cheltenham with my lucky 15s using the bookie bashing horse racing tracker. So that was a net negative. I had, on average, about 4 a day. So I had about 25 lucky 15s. So I just didn't get enough of those winners on the latter days. I was about minus 8% ROI. So I had a couple of break-evens and small wins, but enough busts or, just one place where I didn't make anything. So that was that. The other thing that I bet on was, and I went quite big on this, was Willie Mullins over 9.5 winners at Cheltenham. Now, I don't know where this was enhanced, but it was under enhanced specials at BetDAC and Matchbook and Smarkets. And it was up for quite some time. And early on, I calculated the fair odds around about 2.4, 2.5, something like that. And you could back at 2.93, 2.8 on the day. And really, there shouldn't be much question about what the odds are here, because you know what the odds of Willie Mullins winning a single race are, because that's a non-mutually exclusive or calculation. You just add up the sum of all of his horses, and they have liquid win prices on the exchange. So you know those probabilities. You just add them all up, and that's one race. And then you've got the mutually exclusive or, where he's got a number of different races, and you've got a probability in each race. So you know the probability of Willie Mullins to get over 9.5. You can do it in a spreadsheet, and it was kind of weird because there was value not just in the back, and I don't know where it was enhanced, and I don't know what it was enhanced to, so that was difficult to know. But I was easily getting 2.8, 2.9 matched, and as we got to the day, it was down at 2.4, 2.45, something like that. But then a lot of money came into lay at 2 on Smarkers, like nearly £1,000, and I didn't understand why. I had to go and recheck my mathematics. Had there been a significant non-runner, a withdrawal of Willie Mullins? But no, there hadn't. They were all still running. I mean, he had a lot of short-priced horses. I mean, he was like 1.1 to win the first race at Cheltenham. On the Wednesday of Cheltenham, that was the 13:30. He had the 1-2 favourite who won, Ballyburn. But also he had second, 66-1 Jimmy DuSoil, and third, 92 Il Atlantique, and fourth, 40-1 Mercury, and fifth, Predators Gold, 7-1. So there were some races he was just going to win, right? So we just knew what the odds were, and it was kind of weird that there was value on both sides. And hedging's for gardeners. I don't want to necessarily undertake in that filthy art of arbitrage, but I'll place value back bets, and I'll place value lay bets. And it's not very often where I see a massive value back bet, and then pretty much on the same day I see a massive value lay bet in the same market. So I had all of the lay at 2, and I backed a lot at 2.8. So I ended up inadvertently arbing this market. Didn't mean to. I was technically having 2 different bets, but I ended up getting something like, I did slightly change my mathematics so that it wasn't completely risk-free, and I did risk a small amount to win a lot. I ended up getting implied odds of like 20-1 on Mullins to get over 9.5 winners at Cheltenham. And I enjoyed this bet because, he could be even money. Well, he was 1.77 to get a winner in the first race. Didn't get it, but that's okay. We still got more races. He got a winner in the 210, the 330, the 410. The next day, the first 2 races, the 130, the 210. He's got 5 winners by the 210 of day 2 of Wednesday. And so we now just need 5 more winners. He got the last one on the Tuesday, so that was 6. On the Wednesday. None on the Thursday, so he's still on 6 as we need 4 on the Friday. Gets the 210. Gets the 250. Gets the Gold Cup. We needed 1 more winner from the last 3 races. Odds 8.8, 1.61 in the 450, and 3.5 in the 530. So something like we're like a 1-4 favourite. After the Gold Cup, after 330, we're at 9, and we just 1 more winner, and we didn't get it. It was a fun bet. Did lose a tiny amount of money, but I arbed my face off, and so I recouped the majority of my back stake in that market. I had to have a big shower afterwards as well. So that was my big exchange bet. I enjoyed that bet. I kind of thought I'd already spent it after the Gold Cup, so there you go. What about the tracker? So the tracker, how did it perform? The answer is it depends. It depends how you want me to report on return on investment. So do you want every plus EV horse? How many bookmakers do you want? Okay, this sounds fair. Let's not cherry pick one bookmaker. If we cherry pick Bet365, then maybe we're just cherry picking the top price there. In fact, if you want to just know about the bookmakers, the best performing bookmaker this year was Paddy Power, followed by Bet365, then Ladbrokes, then Betfred, then Sky Bet, and William Hill was the only bookmaker that you would have lost at this year, out of the top 6 anyway. Bet365, Betfred, William Hill, Ladbrokes, Sky Bet, and Paddy Power. So Paddy Power, the most profitable bookmaker this year. What was more profitable, Default or BB Algo? It was the BB Algo again, but only marginally, not statistically relevant. There's a liquid market in Default, and that should be more profitable in the long run. So how do you want me to report this? I'm going to do it in a couple of different ways. Maybe you want me to take every single horse from the bookmaker, those 6 bookmakers, once a day, which is what we did at 12 o'clock. So if we do that, what it means is that if a horse such as Ballyburn, the 1 to 2 favourite, is plus EV at one bookmaker, and another bookmaker will be on him twice. Now, of course, Ballyburn, the 1 to 2 favourite, isn't going to be plus EV. We don't tend to see odds-on horses as being plus EV on the tracker. But you would have had about 500 bets under BB Algo, 500 bets under default for those bookmakers. So that's about, roughly 100 bets a day across 6 bookmakers, maybe 16 bets per bookmaker per day, right? 2 or 3 horses per race. How would we have done under that metric? We wouldn't have done too badly. BB Algo returned 18% return on investment. Default returned 16% return on investment. Now, bear in mind the long-term ROI of the horse racing track is about 5%, so it overperformed at Cheltenham, but it was a small sample size. So there was a tale of the days, minus 15% on day 1 on Tuesday, but then 30% on day 2, and 50% on day 3, and then a minus 6% on the Friday. So really, Wednesday and Thursday were the big days there. What about if we only included one horse, every unique horse? So let's say a horse is plus EV at Bet365 and Betfred. Well, let's now just include it once. Arbitrarily, we'll just include it at the first time it's recorded, which is not necessarily top price or top EV. It's just the first time it is recorded. So what about then? If we do that, we get 3.8% ROI. So not quite as much, but it was profitable. It was just a little bit of staying power. I was getting through that first day with all of those favourites and second favourites winning. So it was a sort of slightly down Cheltenham for me. I always get every year a lot of friends, I don't know if you have this, asking for tips. I'm not a tipster. So I provide value bets calculated through a database that can be calibrated to your personal risk profile and the bookmaker that you have. And I kind of need to know what bookmaker you have to give you any advice whatsoever, because it's tailored to those particular odds. And they're like, Tom, just give me tips. I'm going to Cheltenham. I don't have any tips for you. They're like, I thought you did this for a job. And I'm like, and I end up just sending them whatever's on the tracker. And you send them like 8 horses and they put them into 2 lucky 15s, and then those lucky 15s don't win, and they're like, I thought you were meant to be good at this, and you're like, shut up, now we have to go down the route of explaining to you that 8 horses isn't enough horses to prove that I can do this at scale or not. But it's mostly for people that are going to Cheltenham and want a little bit of fun every single year. I've only ever been once, maybe like a decade ago. I went with my mate Bruce, my Aussie mate Bruce, and he had an Irish cousin, right? And his Irish cousin was a member or a patron of this pub, pretty rough pub in South Birmingham. You know, more tattoos than teeth kind of place. And they were hiring a bus, and they were doing all the drinking and all the drugs on the way down, and then all the drinking and all the drugs at the Cheltenham, and then all the drinking and all the drugs on the way back. Now, I don't ever have a problem being an outlier. I don't need alcohol to drink. I mean, I was having a couple of drinks on the day, but I don't need to drink to have a conversation, to be friendly, to be sociable. Also, I have no qualms me being me. I am who I am. It's like, I don't need to pretend to be you or prove to be you. But anyway, I get on the bus, and of course, I want to be statistical and analytical as I go to Cheltenham. So I brought with me the thing in a bag, in my little bag, that's going to enhance my Cheltenham experience. That's right, my little white thing that I brought with me to have on the bus on the way to Cheltenham was my iPad. Because with my iPad, I had access to different databases and numbers and calculators. And so I sat down on the bus. And I sat down next to this chap from the pub. And I'm like, hello, mate, how you doing? Doesn't talk to me. And then I get the iPad out, and I start sort of flicking around different opportunities and, you know, odds checker, and I want to know different databases and stuff like that. And he sort of screams across the bus, Bazza, come here. You're swapping with me. You're sitting next to Captain fucking iPad. And just because I was sat there on my iPad doing some work and some analytics ahead of Cheltenham, all of a sudden I was captain fucking iPad. Do you know what? Absolutely no problem being captain fucking iPad. It's totally cool with me. However, I would say I didn't enjoy going to Cheltenham very much. It's just too chaotic, and I learned that you can't really do anything informed on the day. There's too much going on. It's too difficult. You might as well just go there and drink like all of them lads were doing. It's just too much. So I went that one year, and I'm glad I went. I don't think I need to go again. In fact, I pretty much know that I need to go again. I'm perfectly happy being in a fuddy-duddy and watching it on the television. And this year was maybe the first Cheltenham ever that I'd lost, although I have to say if Willie Mullins had got one of the winners in the last 3 races, it would have been a pretty decent Cheltenham for me overall comparatively to previous years. But that's the game that we're playing these days. We're no longer, betting 15 horses a race on a 9-runner, on a race with 9 runners that pay 6 or whatever. You get my drift, right? You got to roll with the times. You got to find the new edges. And that Willie Mullins over 9.5 was not the sort of thing I've been betting in previous years, but I'm glad I found the EV, and I was pretty close to a significant payday, and let it run again next year, and I'm sure I'll have a little bit of better luck with the turning of the events at the end of the festival, or the rub of the green, because after all, I am captain fucking iPad. Opening the mailbag this week, I got tagged on X or Twitter about goals in the Premier League, whether there has been some significant changes that could, we could sort of have a look at edges, which you can always have when there are fundamental shifts and changes in the expected number of goals and action in football games. So, yeah, I was tagged, so why don't we have a look at that? So if I just open up Twitter here. Oh, I was also tagged recently, I see, as well, by the Betting is Cool account, who tagged top 10 favourite betting-related X accounts, including 1-2 expert, Joseph Buckdale, golf punter Luke Patton, who does these long essays, and some people don't like them very much. I quite enjoy them. He's quite reasoned arguments and has a lot of knowledge and experience in the industry. You got Nishikori Picks, you got SBC Info, Overs Specialist, and you got me at Tom Brownlee, which is great because I don't tweet too much. I tend to avoid the malaise and the negativity. But that was a positive tweet, of course. With every positive tweet tends to come some negativity. Hello. Hi. Tom, the edit squirrel here. Just listen back to that part of the podcast. You know what? What happened there was I went into a little bit of a rabbit hole. You see, someone, you could call him a troll, got in touch with me with a serious amount of negativity, made me feel bad, and I talked about it on the BashCash. Guess what? He wins if I do that, doesn't he? Right? Because he wanted me to feel bad. That was the purpose of him getting in touch, the words he was saying. So me giving him the satisfaction of talking about how it made me feel bad on the BashCast makes him win. So I've removed this segment. Just going to call him a complete arse. He knows who he is. You're an arse. He was someone insignificant that was a member of the community, the bookie bashing community, for like 3 days, years and years ago. He was awfully disruptive. You know how is the Pareto principle where, 10% of your customers cause you 90% of your issues. Well, in his case, it was 0.5% of your customers cause you all your issues, and life was a lot better. And we grew as a community when he left. But every time he gets back in touch, just brings that darkness, that souring of the day with him. So instead, I'll bring you my own bad news. Sorry to drop this, but I've had really the most awful news recently from my runner. And that is that his girlfriend is expecting a baby. And of course, I hope that your thoughts are with me at this period in time, because as we all know, when a runner has a baby, that's pretty much the end of the game for them running for a period of time. There's no worse news that a runner can deliver, that he is either getting married or having a baby or is somehow happy in his marital or romantic relationships. And, of course, this is going to mean limited trips to be able to drop anything and go when a particular bet crops up, and reduced volume. And I think we can all agree these are very, very sad times, but we'll get through it. We'll get it through it together. The trauma and the pain will only last a short period of time. The kid will grow up. Maybe we'll find a new runner, but yeah. Back to the podcast. Anyway, back to the tweet about Premiership goals. Somebody plotted a chart with 2020 when we know there was a drop in goals and cards and corners and action during lockdown, 21, 22, 22, 23 and 23, 24. And they averaged the goals in the last 50 games. And come February, it was like an all-time high of 3.7 goals per game. I mean, the long-term average, well, I got the data. I mean, the average in 2020, 2.64 goals per game. The average in 2021, 2.62 goals per game, 2.78 goals per game in 2023. So being up at 3.8 goals per game is a significant shift. I mean, you do have the fundamental changes, the differences in extra time at the end of the first half and at the end of the second half. And I think we did do a review of this actually for our own models, and I think there's something like 2 minutes, just short of 2 minutes extra on average in the first half, which is quite a long time, by the way. That's like 4% more playing time in the first half and like 4 minutes or something in the second half. And that certainly is going to have an effect, like longer playing time, longer time with the ball in play is going to have an effect on the amount of goals. But I mean, a jump from 2.6 to 3.8, that's a serious jump. And so I think the question that was being asked was that, do we need to change our models? Are we going to get an edge playing overs? Something like in February when this was posted, February the 18th, the last 36 Premier League games had all gone over 1.5 goals. That's a lot, right? So like start getting over 1.5 goals into all of your lucky 15s. And you will start clearing up. I mean, I know the odds are like 1.3 and things like that. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of games over 1.5 goals. So without looking at the data, my first comment was this now looks like an anomaly. Like we've hit the peak of something that cannot continue. Like if you go back to the last week of January, you had Brighton versus Wolves, which was 0-0. The next game was Fulham versus Everton, which was 0-0. A few games before was Everton versus Villa, which was 0-0. The day before was Chelsea versus Fulham, which was 1-0. The day before was West Ham versus Brighton, which was 0-0. So just because up to February we'd had 36 games in a row that were over 1.5 goals doesn't mean that every game is going to be over 1.5 goals. The sequence actually got all the way to 38. So there were only 2 more goals after this tweet, 2 more games after this tweet was posted, and then Man City won, Brentford 0, and the following week, Bournemouth 0, Man City 1, Wolves 1, Sheffield United 0. So again, it's one of those that you see that there have been 36 games in a row over 1.5. You start thinking every game is going to be over 1.5, and then all of a sudden a glut comes in. What we're doing here is we're reverting to the mean, but the mean of what exactly? Because the mean doesn't look like it's 2.64, 2.62, 2.78, 2.89 goals per game as it has been in previous seasons. Well, we are at this recording of the BashCast and in the international break, 284 games into the season. And we have an XG, an average number, well, it's not an XG, we have an average number of goals per game of 3.23. So, of course, that has come down from the 3.8 that it peaked at in February, which was an interesting statistical anomaly. But it's still 0.45 goals per game more, nearly half a goal more per game than it was last season. What does this mean? Does it mean that we go and bet the overs at the bookmakers? Does it mean that we go and bet the overs at the exchanges? I would maybe have a look at what the XG is over on any tool that has it. We have a MatchXG tool at Bookie Bashing, but whichever tool you use. And I would make sure that maybe that your average Premiership game is in the threes. And if it isn't, then maybe your model needs refinement. And then using that model, I'd maybe be going on not to the bookmakers, but on to the exchanges and seeing what I can get there and seeing what the prices are there. I mean, it's more than possible that if the average price of a set of weekend games in the Premiership, the average price isn't equating to 3.23 goals per game, then there may be value betting the overs on the exchange. But those numbers will be pretty sharp by some pretty heavy syndicated models. That's one option. Another one is to see if any particular bookmaker is consistently top price. If they are, and those prices are close to the exchange prices, can we start compounding those games into multiples, doubles, trebles, trixies, something like that? That would be the second option. I mean, don't bother with your Sky Bets and your Corals and your Ladbrokes. They're going to have so much margin added in that there's not going to be an edge there. But at least there has been a fundamental shift and a change. And as with lockdown, if we bet the unders and the no action bets, we would have cleaned up. But we kind of figured this out when it was too late. It may be too late now to jump on this bandwagon, especially with the massive increase that we had in February up to 3.8. But keeping your eye on the number of goals per game, especially this season with the changes in rules, can be exploitative. And yeah, in the region of 3.23, 32.3 goals per weekend is what we're looking at just now. Sadly, we are coming in to the international friendlies and the Euro qualification break, so there's nothing for me to look at specifically for this weekend. What I will be looking at, though, is going to be coming up in 2 hours, and that is going to be Luxembourg to beat Georgia. They are something like 4.9, but if they do that, they could be on the cusp of qualification. And what a story that would be for Luxembourg. I'm not coming at that from any mathematical or edge perspective. It's more a romantic one. Come on, the Luxembourgians. And whatever it is that you're betting on this weekend, please make sure it is value. This is Tom, signing out.